What you're about to witness is one of those rare moments in Washington where two completely different visions of justice collide head-on, not with theatrics, but with precision. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse sits down with Pam Bondi, not just to ask questions, but to measure something deeper, whether the country's next chief law enforcement official will protect the public or protect the powerful. And that's the real heartbeat of this exchange. It's not about a list of names, or a single nominee, or a single administration. It's about a far bigger question. Can the Justice Department still function as an independent institution when political pressure is louder than ever? And as you'll see, every question Senator Whitehouse asks is really a test of independence, a test of accountability, and a test of whether history is about to repeat itself. Let's break down what actually happened in this room.
Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. Welcome, Ms. Bondi.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you for meeting with me. I greatly appreciate that.
It was a pleasure. Ms. Bondi, you were a courtroom prosecutor for a great many years. As a courtroom prosecutor, did you ever have an enemies list?
No, Senator.
And you went on to be Florida's Attorney General. As Florida's Attorney General, did you ever have an enemies list?
No, Senator.
As Florida's Attorney General, you were responsible for hiring into the Florida Department of Attorney General, correct?
Senator, the Attorney General's office in Florida is the third largest in the state, approximately 1,400 employees and approximately 400 lawyers. Only California and Texas are our bigger offices.
And you were responsible
yes.
for hiring into that office while you were Attorney General?
Yes.
Would you have hired someone into the Florida Attorney General's office who you knew had an enemies list?
Senator, to cut to the chase, you're clearly talking about Kash Patel. I don't believe he has an enemies list. He made a quote on TV, which I have not heard. I saw your sign, or Senator Durbin's sign, about Kash. But I know that Kash Patel has had 60 jury trials as a public defender, as a prosecutor. He has great experience in the Intel Department, Department of Defense. I have known Kash, and I believe that Kash is the right person at this time for this job. You'll have the ability to question Mr. Patel.
And I'm questioning you right now
do.
about whether you will enforce an enemies list that he announced publicly on television.
Oh, Senator, I'm sorry. There will never be an enemies list within the Department of Justice.
Thank you. The FBI's, what is the FBI's role in national security and counterterrorism, and how important is that role?
You know, Senator, I believe now more than ever, counterterrorism is so important and vital in our country. We are facing such incredible threats here and abroad. I'm sure many of you saw former FBI Director Wray's interview on 60 Minutes. He talked about the threats that, frankly, again, I don't have my security clearance, but the threats facing us, Senator, from China right now that are so great, with the sleeper cells within our country.
Given that importance, is it responsible to call for shutting down the FBI's counterterrorism and national security work? And will you, as Attorney General, impede or shut down the FBI's counterterrorism and national security work?
Senator,
Two questions.
Senator, I believe that national security is vital right now for our country on so many fronts. I could continue to discuss many others.
And the FBI's role in that?
And the FBI plays a vital role in counterterrorism
which you will or will not shut down.
I will look at each agency. I have no intention of shutting anything down right now, Senator. I am not in that office yet, and if confirmed, I will look at each individual agency and how it should be managed, but counterterrorism right now in our world is vital.
You have said that Department of Justice prosecutors will be prosecuted in the Trump administration. What Department of Justice prosecutors will be prosecuted and why?
I said that on TV. I said prosecutors will be prosecuted, to finish the quote, if bad. Investigators will be investigated. You know, we all take an oath, Senator, to uphold the law. None of us are above the law. Let me give you a really good example of a bad lawyer within the Justice Department, a guy named Klein Smith, who altered a FISA warrant, one of the most important things we can do in this country. So will everyone be held to an equal, fair system of justice if I am the next Attorney General? Absolutely. And no one is above the law.
Under what circumstances will you prosecute journalists for what they write?
I believe in the freedom of speech. Only if anyone commits a crime. It's pretty basic, Senator, with anything, with any victim. And this goes back to my entire career for 18 years as a prosecutor and then 8 years as Florida's Attorney General. You find the facts of the case, you apply the law in good faith, and you treat everyone fairly.
And it would not be appropriate for a prosecutor to start with a name and look for a crime. It's a prosecutor's job to start with a crime and look for a name, correct?
Senator, I think that is the whole problem with the weaponization that we have seen the last 4 years and what's been happening to Donald Trump. They targeted Donald Trump. They went after him, actually starting back in 2016. They targeted his campaign. They have launched countless investigations against him. That will not be the case if I am Attorney General. I will not politicize that office. I will not target people simply because of their political affiliation. Justice will be administered even-handedly throughout this country. Senator, we've got to bring this country back together. We've got to move forward, or we're going to lose our country.
Yeah, I think the concern is that weaponization of the Justice Department may well occur under your tenure, and we want to make sure that that's not the case, that you remain independent, that you remain able to and willing to tell the president no when that's necessary to protect the Constitution and the integrity of the department. So that's where I'm asking these questions. We talked in the meeting about the contacts policy that has prevailed really since Senator Hatch sat in that chair and demanded it of the Clinton Justice Department through all the administration since then, with the exception of a brief period under Attorney General Gonzalez, which he corrected and which did not end well for him. There has been a contacts policy that limits contacts between the White House and the Department of Justice to a very few senior officials on each side. In your role as Attorney General, if you are confirmed, will you maintain, defend, and enforce that longstanding contacts policy?
Senator, yes, I will meet with White House counsel, and I will meet with the appropriate officials and follow the contacts policy.
My time has expired. Thank you, Ms. Bondi.
Senator Cornyn.
Once the conversation begins, Whitehouse wastes no time. He opens with something simple, deceptively simple. Did you ever keep an enemies list? It sounds symbolic, almost trivial. But in Washington, that question carries decades of meaning. An enemies list isn't just a political tool, it's a warning sign. It signals the moment government stops serving the public and starts sorting them. Whitehouse knows the power of the question. He's setting the stage. He's asking Bondi to draw a line in the sand, publicly. Bondi denies it, and Whitehouse immediately uses that moment to pivot to the core issue. Kash Patel, a nominee whose public comments about targeting political opponents triggered national concern. Bondi defends Patel's experience, but Whitehouse isn't asking about resume lines. He's asking whether someone who talks openly about enemies can walk into the Justice Department with access to its most sensitive tools. And he presses Bondi again. Will you enforce an enemies list he publicly announced? This is where the temperature in the room shifts. Bondi rejects the premise, promises no such list will exist, and you can almost feel both of them tightening their grip, one on accountability, the other on reassurance. Then comes the turn. Whitehouse moves from Patel to the FBI's counterterrorism work, the part of the government that handles threats, intelligence, and national security. He asks Bondi whether she supports calls to shut that work down. He asks whether she would restrict or eliminate the FBI's counterterrorism programs. In Washington, this isn't a casual question. It's about whether national security will remain insulated from political upheaval or become collateral in a larger ideological battle. Bondi insists counterterrorism is vital. Whitehouse listens, but he's not just listening for agreement, he's listening for commitment. National security agencies can't operate under hesitation or ambiguity, and Bondi's answers show caution, not certainty. And that hesitation is exactly what Whitehouse is probing. Then the exchange deepens. Whitehouse questions Bondi's past comments about prosecuting Justice Department officials. This moment matters because it reveals another pressure point. Will the next Attorney General use their authority to pursue political retaliation? Bondi says no one is above the law and points to the Kleinsmith case as an example of misconduct. But again, Whitehouse isn't asking about one case. He's asking whether she believes prosecutors should ever be targeted because of their work on politically sensitive investigations. And then Whitehouse finally arrives at the core principle. A prosecutor must start with a crime and look for the person, not start with a person and look for a crime. That line is the entire philosophy of the American justice system condensed into one sentence. And he asks Bondi directly whether she agrees. When Bondi answers, she shifts the conversation back to what she sees as past unfairness toward Donald Trump. That pivot is telling, and Whitehouse hears it. He isn't simply debating philosophy anymore. He's measuring whether Bondi will remain independent when political pressure rises. Finally, Whitehouse takes it to the highest level, the contacts policy, the firewall separating the White House from the Department of Justice. For decades, this policy has been the single most important guardrail, preventing political influence from steering prosecutions. He asks Bondi whether she will maintain and enforce it. Bondi says yes. Whitehouse ends his time there, but not because he has run out of questions. He ends because the entire purpose of his line of inquiry was to give the public a clear picture of what is at stake. Not just one confirmation, but the future independence of the Justice Department itself. This is why hearings like this matter. They're not about political drama. They're about whether the country's most powerful institutions, the ones responsible for justice, safety, and accountability, can still function without bending to whoever sits in the Oval Office. And these exchanges tell us something important. Every Attorney General must prove, not promise, that they can say no to power. Every nominee must show that the law, not loyalty, guides their decisions. And every senator has the responsibility to test whether the people stepping into these positions understand the weight of that responsibility. If you want to stay informed on the moments that shape our democracy, the hearings, the confrontations, the cross-examining that reveal how government really works behind the microphones, then make sure you're subscribed. Because these aren't just clips. These are the turning points that decide how power is used in this country. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with us. The more you understand these moments, the more power you have as a citizen.